Good morning. Uh, I was doing a few technical difficulties, but I can still do this lesson the old way. So anyway, I'm going to read our memory text here today. But you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the end of the earth. And so with the first part of that memory text here, you would wonder if this next 40 minutes is going to be about the Holy Spirit and what it's going to do for you, if you're going to talk to somebody and tell them, I go to church, I believe in God. Well, that's not what the lesson's about. The lesson's about is them last parts, and I don't write the lesson, but the people that, do, they pick it apart or put it under a microscope. Who are you going to be witnesses to? Well, in Jesus' time, there was Judea and Samaria and to the end of the earth. Well, the end of the earth, it's the same as today. In Jesus' time, it's the same as us, the time of the earth. Now, I'm going to read some of this stuff. God can sometimes move us out of our comfort zone and make us His witness. Sometimes this change can be used to accomplish His purposes, such as in the example of the dispersion of the people at the Tower of Babel. This dispersion was the means of peopling the earth, and thus the Lord's purpose was accomplished through the very means that men had employed to prevent its fulfillment. That's from Ellen G. White in Patriarchs and Prophets. Abraham, meanwhile, went from his home country to another as means of witnesses. The disciples of Jesus went from working among only their own people to working for others. In Acts 1:8, Jesus laid down a principle of evangelism. They would start locally, Jerusalem, Judea, then go to Samaria, and ultimately to the ends of the earth. But even if we do not leave our country, God still wants us to reach out to the people around us. When the church in Jerusalem was becoming complacent, its members were dispersed. Though persecution came and people suffered, these unfortunate events became a means of spreading the good news all over the world. I've started attending through the years over and over, but when I got married, rather than go to Hot Springs and Hermosa wasn't up and going, I came here, okay? And so I've continually been coming here. But at the time, there was 2 churches in Rapid. And I think the other one was over here on this side. And I was asking a gentleman that been going to the church a lot longer than me. I said, how's that work? I mean, our church that I was sitting in, and he was in, I said, this doesn't all fill up, so why would you need another? And I'm a very pragmatic kind of person, okay? I'm the type of person that doesn't ever see why you need to change the furniture, okay? That's me, all right? And that means furniture at home, and that's furniture in church. I mean, that's just the way I am, okay? It's good enough. But I was told by this gentleman, with regards to church, he said, this is the way it works. I'm listening. He said, if you pick a different building and you just open it up, and it doesn't matter what the furniture is in it. He said, there's just a different, he said that side of town, people will just go. Maybe they don't want to go to the other place, but they'll look and go, I wonder what that place is. I mean, I'm making this up. He didn't say this, but I'm making it up now. It's like a Burger King or a McDonald's. Maybe you never go. But if there was one right next to your house, maybe you would. And so that's what he was essentially saying. And so that was comfort zone. That's kind of a comfort zone. If as an organization, you decide, and see, that was my comfort zone. I was in the building that was the McDonald's or the Burger King. It's right here. That's where we serve them. And what he's essentially saying is well, what happens if you had a building over there? And he said that was the basis behind it. I never thought of that. What's not to love about right here? It just doesn't work that way. I do have to tell a little story before we go, and we're going to jump right into comfort zones. And I think on Sunday, moving beyond our comfort zones, we're going to go there. But I was telling my kids, I said about comfort zones. I said, sometime we're going to have company, and you always have to know that the other company, they have different ways, different things that they like, or their whether it's just simple food or whatever, just things they like to do, or whether they like to go and whether it's they like sports or they like going movies. People do different things. They don't do, I said, you get in the mindset that you think everybody's like yourself. And I said, don't work. And I said, here was a good story. I was in college and went over to a friend's house, and this friend I had younger siblings, and I was staying for the supper, and this was over in Wyoming, okay, so it's a regular town like any town around here, and they said, yeah, Mom's cooking up, we're having this for dessert, and I don't remember what the name was, and I looked at the younger kids, and they're like, yeah, and I mean, they started jumping around like monkeys. Mom's gonna make this, and they said, yeah, Kibbin. That's my name for anybody who came in like, Kibbin's here. We're having a guest, so Mom's going to whip this up, And so the way the kids started jumping around and everything, I thought, this is going to be good, okay? I said, I was seeing little ones, I mean, like third graders. And I mean, third graders know what's good, don't they? All right, so it's time to eat in the meal. And I mean, we ate the main course, time for dessert. And I mean, everybody had their spoon ready. Yeah, spoon or fork, okay? And they're smiling. And they're smiling at me. And I started eating. And I think it was like bread pudding or something like that. Well, I'll take chocolate cake any day, all right? So I was like, all I did was I eat. I just smiled back, yeah. For me, that's what it was. So I have 2 kids, 2 daughters, and I said, if people ever come over, whatever our comfort zone is, be fair to people. It's like, hey, this is what we do. If this is what it is, we kind of like it, and just go from there. Don't assume that somebody's just going to integrate in, because that day, well, like I said, I wasn't in a foreign country. I was in Wyoming, okay, and it was, I was a guest, and these people are excited because this is the best. And yeah, it was all right. But what I like, it might not be what someone else does. All right, moving beyond our comfort zone Sunday. In order to reach others, God intends for us to move beyond our comfort zone. The desire to remain only with our own ilk and ethnic or social kind can lead to selfishness, even evil. The danger is one of the lessons derived from the story of Babel. Okay, I'm now going to have Rick read this. I read this story again. And said that they built the tower. But they were building a city too. Now, I read that little clip on Saturday of what Ellen White thought about it, and it was pretty good. She said, this dispersion was the means of peopling the earth, and thus the Lord's purpose was accomplished through the very means that men had employed to prevent its fulfillment. Okay, I might, I'm not digressing. What were the intentions of the people? What, they weren't bad people. Somebody said that I think I looked in, maybe it was the author here, right in here. But this idea that the flood was traumatic, but hey, they were repopulating the earth. And so it had been a few generations since that. You want to talk already? Here.
They were rebellious.
Hey, you got to say it on this thing.
They weren't bad, but they were rebellious.
You have it on? Go ahead.
Yeah, they were rebellious.
What were they rebelling against?
God.
Oh, okay. In what ways? It's never been said.
Well, they didn't trust God when God said he won't cause another flood. They're going to build a tower real high so they could survive a flood.
Okay, all right.
God wanted them to disperse all the earth and said, no, we don't want to do that. We're going to stay here.
Okay.
So they were against God's will.
From the start, okay. But the thing is, with regards to Ellen White making the statement, those are the same people that they wanted to spread out, that there was going to be a good thing if they spread out, because they must have been good enough people, because if they dispersed, they would be able to, I guess the word for this week is witness. So it wasn't, they weren't horrendous because they wanted them spread out. Well, we already answered that question. What were they wanting to do, and why would God thwart it? The story of the people at the Tower of Babel reveals their great ambition. They were planning to make a monumental structure, a city, and a tower such as existed nowhere else in the world, a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves. Okay, here, it's a stretch for the author of this lesson to, go to the bottom of the question. We're going to touch on Tower of Babel people again, but I'm going to the bottom of this question. Are you part of a group or ethnic community that is more comfortable among themselves? In what ways may you possibly engage with others who are not part of your race, ethnicity, or nationality? I'm going to add in there your working class too. Why not throw that in there? If you tend to be, people identify with their career. So I more identify if I'm talking with somebody that, out of my mouth comes the word, so where do you work? I don't, with regards to ethnicity, there was a gentleman I met. First name was Kerry. He's a few years older than me, and last name's Heiser. Okay? This was one of the rare times that I'm going to talk about ethnicity, because it really doesn't apply. But his last name is Heiser, Heiser. He's from North Dakota. And I go, I said, take from that, you're German, aren't you? And he said, yeah. Okay, what does that mean now? Really, not a lot. No, but I said, you're from North, and he goes, yeah, I am. And he says, I'm going to tell you that, and this guy, see, I'm 53 years old, this guy's might be 57. He's got like 4 brothers. He was in high school, and both his parents passed away. It was one of those weird deals that you don't normally hear about it. But he was on a farm up there, and he said, my mom went first, and then my dad. And he said, my oldest brother was out of high school, and he said there's 2 of us left in high school. And he said, I was a senior, and my younger brother was like a sophomore. And he said the older brother was left with the farm, but his older brother is probably 19 or 20. And he said, yeah, we didn't like our older brother. He said, after Dad and Mom died, he said, he was laying the law down. We had to get some work done. And he said, I graduated from high school. And he said, I looked at the youngest one, and he said, you deal with it. He said, I went to the oil fields. So it was interesting. This gentleman is only a few years older than me. But he tells me, he said, I am, just by the way, he said, it doesn't matter, but he said, I am German. He said, my mom's German and my dad's German. He said, they were both born in North Dakota. Both. He said their family came over from Germany, and he said, when you talk to people, he said, some people say they're German. See, my last name's Rittberger, but I only have maybe a quarter German in me. So I'm talking to this guy whose last name's Heiser, and he said, does it make him unique? No, it don't. But he just said, by the way, he said, does he eat any different? No. But anyway, after my little story here, though, I can identify with him, though, in a way. More so than other people, I guess. Does it mean that there is a connection? Well, I know his farming. I know that. And there's just something there. Not a lot to go on. Because I feel that if I'm talking to anybody that works, I identify with them. But this thing at the bottom, are you part of a group or and I thought about this is the hard I could come to this. Are you part of a group or ethnic community that is more comfortable among yourselves? And what ways may you possibly engage with others who are not part of your race, ethnicity, or nationality? All right? So am I saying I identify more with people from North Dakota? Maybe. Possibly. Do I identify more with people from North Dakota than New Mexico or Texas? Probably. But does it ever get to the point that I'm, what do you call it, a jerk to others around me that look over at me and go, you really don't understand what goes on in the rest of the country or the world? I don't think it's gotten that bad. I wouldn't think. But you remember, this question that's wrote here at the bottom, we have a worldwide church. It applies to everybody. So, I'm asking you a question. Lane, you're up front. All right. I'm going to make this hard, but you got to stay focused. All right? And James will turn that hard. Are you part of a special club? All right, you got to say it right there. Are you? Okay, I'll ask. Are you part of a special club?
No.
What about culture, or you? Do you find your Midwesternisms get in the way of understanding other people that are not from the Midwest?
No.
No?
No. It's hard to converse with people from the East
Okay.
because they talk a different language than we. They're English, but they talk a different language. I have family out there, and sometimes it's hard to understand them because they use different associations than we do for different things.
Okay.
So I would say anybody can get converse with different people and find common ground among them. But the South, they're like the East. It's hard for us to communicate with sometimes with people from the South because they talk different than we do, but they mean the same. It's just different wordings that they use in different phrases.
Okay. What do you think about? I'll make it a little harder. What do you think about this? Is what always trips people up, is that sometimes when you use a little humor, or what we sense as humor, somebody else would be like, "What are you like? You're trying to start a fight?" I mean, I really think that Midwestern humor sometimes, if I'm standing up front here and I make light of something, somebody would say, possibly could say from a different group, it's like, why is he laughing at that? Doesn't he understand that's serious? I mean, do you think that Midwestern humor, do you think that what we laugh at, do you think that might get in the way sometimes? Or do you think generally that people understand us?
You know, I think a lot of our habits and cultures that we use here bother people on the different coasts.
Okay. Well, I'm not the only one, because I'm going to say from the coast, I've met some people from the East Coast or whatever, and the way they talk and they go fast, I'm left going, slow down here. I mean, it's almost like a used car salesman. It's like, you're way out ahead, but I find out they're actually trying to communicate, but it's different. It is different. But it can make or break something. If you meet somebody, if we have people that come here to church and such, and if you don't read somebody and truly understand, no, they're being nice. Yeah. Well, I'll take that. I'm going to ask one more question before we move on. Yeah, what? Oh, yeah. No, I can't say, no, you can't talk. No. There you go.
I was reminded of an experience I had. I was training in this girls from the Philippines, did speak English, but English was the second language, and quite shy, and we were trying to figure out, and it was the first time I'd met her, so trying to establish, what are the common, obviously we were both nurses, but one thing that stands out to me, and that is no matter what I was doing, if I got up to go into a patient's room, she was right there. So even though she wasn't verbally communicating with me a lot, as far as telling me yes or asking me questions, I knew that she was trying to pay attention, trying to learn, because like I said, I would get up to go into a room, she was right there, observing, trying to figure out. And as we got to know each other and were able to communicate, talk when we weren't at work, in the break room and stuff, and create that common ground. That's what I was thinking about when you were asking that question.
Yeah. So it's like you had a shadow, but your shadow just wanted to learn. Yeah. Okay. One before we move off of that, I am going to, just because I'm spreading the love around. All right, back there, Eddie. Now Eddie here's getting picked on because he's from, and it's been cliched here in South Dakota too much. It's California. So. So the question I'm going to have to ask you, I'm asking you that I took a trip to Las Vegas Well, we went to Grand Canyon. It was a cheap flight to get in. The purpose was Grand Canyon, okay? My kids weren't doing the slots, all right? So anyway, I found out that Las Vegas is really like Denver. It is, okay? Truly, it just seemed, but what's your thoughts? I mean, you're here.
Yeah.
And you go back and forth, and you've been down to see your sister down in Tennessee?
Arkansas,
Yeah, okay. Is there any differences?
I mean, there's differences in just the way people carry themselves. It's different from California to out here. But one of the things that we saw as we came to church, the common ground was just, we all followed God. And
Good.
And that felt like, when we went from our church to this church, that felt like we were back at home. But out in the real world, there's a difference. I mean, just the way people carry themselves. It's a lot nicer out here. People are a lot friendlier.
Well, you didn't have to say that. Because they're
But
good.
I think it's just everybody's so busy and wrapped up in their own world that nobody has time for anybody. So out here is a lot slower pace, and people like to talk. And I think that's a big difference that I saw at work, where I was used to going into meetings, and it's, get in, talk shop, and get out. Or here it's like a 3-hour meeting that could be done in 45 minutes. So I see the difference where in that aspect, people like to converse a lot more.
Seeing that you ended, thank you for this, because that's good for those guys. I was going to read something this morning, that our lesson today is not about how to witness. Our lesson is about just getting out of the comfort zone. So, it's kind of unfair for me to go into this a little bit, but it's not bad the way he ended those meetings and such like that. He said sometimes it's a fast-paced world, and you need to get work done, and then sometimes, from a business perspective, you might be losing money, okay? But still, from a perspective as a church, and, if you're going to see people, or you're going to meet new people and tell them about yourself, or I go to this church, you're going to have to talk to people. And I was reading this morning. Hopefully I get this. All right. This was with regards to fast meetings that you were talking about, and versus maybe here is a little slower, but the world in general is getting faster with technology and emails and everything. Well, this gentleman was writing on an opinion piece. He was writing about giving wisdom. He said, I'm a late baby, or one of the tail end baby boomers. Lane, I think you're a baby boomer. You should be a boomer. Yeah, you're a boomer. This guy was at the tail end of the boomers, meaning he's probably born in 68 or 69, okay, tail end. Well, he was giving messages to the younger generation, and he said, it was just a light-hearted article, and he said, I'm going to start passing out wisdom-me. He said, wisdom-me, yeah, my wisdom-me. And he's talking to the younger generation. But about fast meetings you were talking about, he says, this is one of his wisdom-me. He says, I know you're one of the texting generations. You'd rather text, chat, or maybe email. I use texting, Facebook, Messenger, Single, Twitter, Telegram, and hieroglyphics to communicate with young people. Okay, that last part we call emojis. I'm adaptable. Try it. And he says right here, pick up the darn phone. What he's telling the younger generation. In the business world, you need to get hold of people. Many of them are older than you and actually use phones too. Talk. But there's more than just preference. You can't tell inflection or tone in a text. A sarcastic comment that triggers you, and we know that happens a lot, might actually be a joke you would have laughed at if you heard it out loud. Texts and emails are also easy to ignore. Get someone on the phone, you can pin them down. It has more immediacy. It is more personal, okay? So back what you were talking about, different outfits where people take longer meetings and maybe you could just text or email. The reason I brought that up today is that when you meet people that are different and such, you're going to find out they communicate in different ways. This gentleman, this was kind of one of those pieces of I'm going to lighten the younger generation. But what they're trying to say is that his generation or culture wants to talk to people. Okay? They don't want to shoot someone a text or an email. So I just brought that up. It wasn't in the lesson, but Eddie brought his about fast pace, fast pace. This gentleman, I read this morning on this opinion piece, and it's realistic. It has something to do. Sometimes people that shoot you texts are being nice. Me, I'll look at something or email and it's like, why don't they just call me? Why are we doing this? So it goes both ways. People aren't understanding people anymore. That's why the piece there, he had a lot of other wisdom me, is what he said, wisdom me, but this was pick up the phone, is what he was trying to say. And so, anyway, I just brought that up. Okay. I covered that. Getting out of your comfort zone and being part of your own. I mentioned about changing churches or different buildings, just to give people an idea that they, a different building works for people. Here on Monday, this is it. Deke, can you look up Genesis 12, 1 through 3? I'm going to have you read that, but I'm going to talk while you look that up. God asked Abraham, whose name he later changed to Abram, changed to Abraham, to leave his country and his people and go to another land. It was all part of God's plan to use Abraham as a vehicle to fulfill his divine purpose in the earth. And Abraham went, according to the word of God. If you could look up Genesis 12, 1 through 3, and read that out loud.
The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to a land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I'll make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on earth will be blessed through you."
Okay, why don't you keep that just for a second? I'd like you to pick two texts right out of here that we're on with God's covenant. We're just going to, just two of them that you'd like. And now I know that I can't always just say everybody knows about Abraham, but he was asked to go. And chances are where he went wasn't much different than where he left. But that's just it. Wherever you're going, somebody, they might look at you as being the new person. And that's always, as a community orienting, that's no fun when somebody sees you as the new person. In my little world, I have such a small world, okay? I do. It's tiny, but to me, there's lots of work to do in it. But here's a common example. Let's just say what I do for work is farm and ranch or some construction, stuff like that, okay? So if I have an immediate neighbor says, "Hey, Kevin, why don't you bring over that piece of equipment and do some work?" I'm like, "Why don't you get your checkbook out?" "Well, no, why don't you just do?" "Okay, yeah, all right." So you get that. And then all of a sudden you're out of your comfort zone and you go somewhere and maybe you go see a friend or somebody in Iowa or whatever, and you're somewhere and somebody says, you jump on something, whether it's a piece of equipment, and somebody jumps up and said, "Don't do this and this and this," and like, "Well, I know." And then you tell them, "Well, yeah, I've got one of these." They're just incredulous. "You sure?" It's like, I need to take a picture. It's the same thing. But when all of a sudden you go somewhere, it's hard. It is hard. You go somewhere and somebody sizes you up and goes, "Oh, you really don't know." And I'm not talking about one of those pride things where you got to convince them. It's just all of a sudden you're not used to it. You're not used to it. When my little world, people know what I can do and can't do. Of course, I'm going to add that. They know what I can't do. But so Abraham, he went somewhere. Who knows what he met when he went? And that was hard for his comfort zone, because I said that wherever he went, they're going to have same crops, probably the same crops in the field. Probably ate the same things. And but picking up and moving his whole family, that was a hard deal. Now, I'm going to have Rick read. Can you read two texts, part of this? Which ones are you going to choose?
Genesis 17, 19.
Okay, please.
Well, I'll start with 18. And Abraham said to God, "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing." Then God said, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son. You will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him." And the other one is Matthew chapter 1:21. She will give birth to a son. You will give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins.
Okay, thank you. From the above text, it is clear that God was going to accomplish the promise made in the Garden of Eden, that someone will come as a solution to the sin problem. This solution, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, was to arise from the line of Abraham and Isaac through Sarah. Hebrews 11:9 states that Isaac and Jacob were heirs to the promise of blessings that God made to Abraham. Let me just go to the bottom question here. Suppose you are called by God to go not knowing where you are going. How do you respond and why? Okay, let me state that I live in western South Dakota. I just got done telling you my world's kind of small. In fact, I only say that because I have a friend from high school that's told me the same thing. He's the same age as me, and he was in the military for like 20 years, retired, and he has two sons. They're just in college, and he told me, he says, Kevin, he said, my world is getting really small. And I thought, well, you're a smart, intelligent person. But what he meant was that the things that he has to worry about is getting put in the box, and that he was talking about the people that are younger than him are dealing with more, obviously, So doesn't mean that his challenges aren't the same, but they're just in that box. So anyway, suppose you are called by God to go, not knowing where you're going. How do you respond and why? Well, my box is getting pretty small, but I'm in a community. I'm probably not going to go out, not even out of this country or out of state, but I did, in my community, I do some different stuff, okay? Some of them are in my comfort zone. 2 things I do, okay? Just because it's a volunteer thing. You don't get paid for them. I do a volunteer fire department, okay? I do that, and I'm not one of those real gung-ho guys. I'm not. In fact, I drive slow to a fire. I'll drive slow to an accident, okay? Within means, if it's important, I will hurry up because that camera's on, okay? I will. But I'm not excited about, boy, when I get there, I'm going to fix it. No. Maybe I'm bringing something that somebody that's there will be able to use better than myself, okay? But I'm just saying I'm not wired that way. But I pitch in, okay? I do that one thing. So that's is that still in my comfort zone? But I do one other thing. My wife was on the county library board, and she served 2 terms. And I went on the county library board. And it's out of my comfort zone, okay? It is. There's 2 libraries in our small county. And I go to these board meetings. I've learned a lot from the people that are there because there's some fundraising such. It's the county taxes pay for these 2. There's a little tiny one in my little town and a bigger one in the bigger town. But I go to these meetings and I meet people that have had a totally different interest than I have in my life. And it's a 1 meeting a month. And you have to listen to the head librarian, read where she's at. Do they have enough help they get some volunteers and they have existing employees, and then she goes over the budget and acknowledges that they're staying within budget of what the county gives them for money. Okay, I do that. All right? It's out of my comfort zone. So, does that mean the world's going to change because I did? I don't know. I don't know. What? Why? Why is it out of my comfort zone? I'm interested. I do read, and in the local library that was close to me, when my kids were growing up, we used it. Okay, so it's not totally out of my comfort zone, but the thing is most of the people on this board is 20 or 30 years older than me, and more experienced. Some of them, they retired out of their careers or jobs, and they have a lot more to give at these meetings, to know how the tax system work, where the money comes from. Yeah, there's some very accomplished people. I'm learning. So I'm going to ask people right here, if you don't go overseas and such, what are you doing here in Pennington County or Custer County or Meade County out of your comfort zone? I just brought that up. Are you out of your comfort zone? Because what the lesson was trying to say today is that would you maybe approach somebody on the street and say, hey, I love going to Seventh-day Adventist Church. Would you, come? Okay. But rather than approach that person, if you are out of your comfort zone, you're going elsewhere and you're around other people, they might look over at you and go, who are you? Well, I'm so-and-so, and I go to church over here, and I've lived here. What, are you going to answer this with words out of your comfort zone? You better try.
I think what comfort zones are, like people in the church, there's many in the church that it would be out of their comfort zone to give a Bible study. Where,
okay,
to me, that's not out of my comfort zone. I'd
Oh,
be willing
okay.
to do it to anybody, with anybody. I've given lots of Bible studies. But I think a lot of people, even when you start giving a Bible study to somebody, they're out of their comfort zone learning. Like I had an acquaintance come over to the house last night, and she said, I hear you give Bible studies. I would like to have a Bible study. And I told her that that would be fine, and she wanted to use a special Bible. And I said, I don't care what kind of Bible you use, but I prefer you don't use that one. And it was because it was from another church, and it's their Bible, and it's changed. But I told her we could try with that. I was out of my comfort zone at trying to use that Bible because I like the King James, and I do not like this Bible was a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
And I don't care for it. I don't care for the wording because they word it different. Everything in the Bible where they've changed the word Jesus, Lord, and Christ, any of those have been changed to the word Jehovah. And some of the meanings of different scriptures have been changed. So that's out of my comfort zone.
But what's going on, what's happening is if you're out of your comfort zone, then the other person's learning about you as much as they're learning. It goes both ways.
Correct.
Yeah. The thing is this isn't a one-way kind of comfort zone thing, is that when you're out of your comfort zone, you might learn something else. Now, in your situation, you're more like, well, I don't want to learn that. But the thing is the other person looking at you is going, what does it matter? And then finally you say, well, this is, anyway, that's the comfort zone thing. And again, like you said, you're learning both ways. That Tower of Babel thing that we talked earlier in the lesson before you get, that's why God said, yeah, you got to split. You got to get out there because it goes both ways. Anybody else, I'm going to pick on Melinda, yours. Is there any out of the comfort zone things that you feel in the last couple of years? Any, something that you probably wouldn't seen yourself doing, but yeah, you pitched in? Could be work. Here in a second. I got to keep the pressure on because she knows that if I come over here, you got to deliver, or it's a waste of my time. Anything, even in a work situation, that all of a sudden you didn't see yourself doing that, but now you're involved. Yeah, try. I mean, there's good or bad. It don't have to be a positive experience.
The time frame you gave me reminded me some of the positions in the church that I currently assist with and help out, namely the elder, was definitely out of my comfort zone. Something I never would have imagined.
Okay, yeah. No, that's fair. Well, she's the elder, one of the elders here at this church. That means that people end up talking to her about problems. That's a big job. Even I don't do that. Yeah. So yes. You're
talking about I'm out of my comfort zone. There's a Pentecostal pastor that wants me to go with him.
okay.
He does drug and alcohol recovery stuff, and
Yeah.
runs a CR, Celebrate Recovery.
Okay.
And he wants me to go with him to knock on doors.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll do this. He'll go knock on doors one right after the other in the neighborhoods where you're going to find the most meth and fentanyl and stuff like that.
Okay.
Until he'll do that till he finds somebody that he can help him change your life, and then he'll go back and do that again the next night, over and over again.
Okay.
And he wants to start doing that again, and that's out of my comfort zone. Just to walk up there and start trying to introduce him to Jesus and get him off drugs.
See if you can help.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. That's that. I'm going to say that's out of my comfort zone. Yeah. But I already got done saying my world's pretty small. That's a big world. Yeah. I was going to say, if I was... Here's just one example out of comfort. Melinda just talked about being an elder in church, okay? You just said, yeah, big step. I'm just answering this question today so that anybody would think that, well, what's out of your comfort zone? You're going to book a ticket and go overseas? No, out of your comfort zone was all of a sudden, like what Lane's saying, she's in a situation where somebody's learning from her because she's saying, let's do it this way. And they're like, why? But they're learning, okay? I was, just to fill time, I'm not an exciting person, just fill time. I was at my volunteer fire department meeting the other night. We had 2 people show up that want to join up. Usually, on any given meeting, we might have 12 people, okay? It's no different than Sabbath school class this morning. You like people to show up, okay? It's just the way you like it to happen. And you need people to show up. Well, anyway, we've got 2 new people show up. One was a teacher that looked to be about 25, 26 years old. And she was brought by another teacher that attends regularly. And said, what's your interest? Well, my family's over at New Underwood, and they're involved. And so I thought, maybe that to me, she might not be married. So at this time, she would probably have, okay. And then there was another lady that was interested in joining just, on a first aid basis. Maybe not interested in the firefighting. So anyway, 2 different people showed up saying, yeah, we're looking at, interested in joining. Okay. Again, group that we have is probably just in this row, monthly, this row right here, this number of people. Maybe take 1 or 2 off. And so I found out of my comfort zone, I thought maybe I need to say something. Okay? And so that's out of my comfort zone. I come here, and if you guys leave today, you're going to find out I didn't even preach up here. I'm like a politician. I just read this thing. I don't leave. I don't bend any arms or anything. I'm just like a politician. You're like, I wonder what he really believes in when you leave. But anyway, so at this meeting, I look over at him, and it was about, I said, you guys are interested in joining? I did. I said, by the way, you need to come back next month because we need people. And we're not this kind of outfit. They're going to train you for the next 5 years before we let you hold a water hose, okay? You need to come back next month, and we'll get you into a pickup to drive around, maybe out on the highway after a vehicle accident. That this is a real deal. This is, when you come, you'll hit the ground running. Your contribution will count. Come back next month. Okay, I said those words. What I'm trying to say is, well, doesn't somebody say that? Isn't that just ordinary? Yeah, well, I said that. And the thing is now I'm going to have to deliver a little bit. You understand? Because if they do keep coming back, I better own up to what I'm saying. I better not go, oh, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. No, I can't do that. Deke, when do I quit this? 2 minutes. All right, so I preached a little bit. Not a little bit. I just told you about outside of my comfort zone. Like I said, somebody else always does those words. They did. And I wasn't way out on a limb, but I had to own up to it. I had to say, please come back. They made it into the room. And sometimes some people leave and go, I don't know if they're serious or I'm really serious about this. I got 2 minutes left. I wanted to say this before I go. Last week we had that big regional thing, and they had these little classes, and I attended one. And I went into the room, there was a class, and this is kind of about out of your comfort zone, but this was like, they even had a fancy reclaiming the missing. Well, I knew what this was about. That was like calling up people that was former Seventh-day Adventists, okay? I came to this thing on behalf of everybody here that didn't come because I was going to pick this apart, okay? I was going to wonder what cheap first grade psychology were they going to use. There's some poor guy that just wants to be left alone. Can you blame him? Okay, everybody in this room, you don't even have to raise your hands today. Don't you want to just be left alone? I mean, aren't there times? Just leave me alone. Okay, so I went to this thing, and on behalf of everybody here, I'm being sarcastic, on behalf to tell you and report back, I found out that it's the real deal and you're getting your money's worth. Okay, this was a handout that was given, and I think our church puts this together. I gotta admit, it was the real deal. It was. I couldn't pick it apart. There wasn't any cheap psychology being used. Okay, this is more about ending this lesson on if you go outside your comfort zone and you're talking to some people. In this situation, it was people that have come before, been members and such. So I'm ending this thing on the one thing I came away from this class is if you're out of your comfort zone and you're talking to somebody that may have come to the church or whatever, you've already made it there out of your comfort zone. But what they came up with is if somebody says, yeah, it's not for me. In fact, last time I was there, they didn't do anything for my kids, and they were always worried about when I was going to do this or that or something. And they're still, one thing they brought up in this is never fight with anybody and never defend. Because you don't know if that person's experience was a bad experience. Don't make matters worse. Just go, oh, okay. Well, I go there, and it's pretty positive now. Well, anyway, that's what this thing was about. This thing was about possibly, I'm kind of smearing our lesson over onto this, is that if you're out of your comfort zone and you meet somebody, don't be a used car salesman and try to give a pitch that's a sales pitch. Just tell them, yeah, this is who I am. I don't know about your experiences, but you're out of your comfort zone, but you'll be safe if you don't have to defend. Anyway, that was the tool, a situation that I learned about. Hey, it was good. It was good. I was ready to pick this apart, and it was all right. And the person given, the pastor given this said, you'll meet people, and you'll go, okay, that's fine. And he said, maybe next time, because you're still going to be in a community and meet people. So anyway, that's what I learned. We're going to say a prayer and end this lesson. Dear Jesus, thank you for our lesson this morning, and thank you for the people that are able to come this morning and the input from the audience. Thank you. Amen.